What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Eternal Understudy here with another distraction from an otherwise productive day. Today, I will be doing a Draw My Life because, well, I want to. I've seen so many of them and learned so much about the people that I look up to. I know we're all here for some sort of entertainment, but it's an amazing feeling getting to know someone in such a revealing way and such a positive atmosphere. So, here we go. I was born in a town called Worcester in Massachusetts. Think of it as a baby Boston. At least that's how I've always thought of it. And Boston will later play a big part of my life, but we'll get there soon. When I was born, my mother was there. She sort of had to be. But my father was nowhere to be seen. Don't really know anything about him, and I have no interest in finding out who he is. I was with my mother for a bit, but she had a pretty bad drug problem. She tried to be a good mother by getting me and my sister toys or sitting up and reading to me when I had nightmares, which was pretty much every night, but at the end of the day, drugs was her baby. I also have a little sister who had a unfortunately similar story with her father. We have different dads. And I remember one day we were on the bus going to school, and she looked up to me and asked, Matt, why isn't Mommy around? Did we do something wrong? I looked back at her and said, I don't know why she isn't around, but we didn't do anything wrong. I tried my best not to be upset by it, but even today it still upsets me. Now, since my mother wasn't around, my grandparents raised me, and they always did their best to make sure that we were taken care of. And this is where I was introduced, actually, to my aunt and uncle's old Atari and ColecoVision. At first I wasn't very good, but it was all I could think of. I would come home and see what game would work, because some of them were, worn out or broken or old, and then I would try and sit there for hours at a time to try to beat it. Eventually I got a Nintendo, and then Nintendo turned to Sega, Sega to Super Nintendo, and so on. My meme, we're French Canadian, so that's the word we use for grandmother, always tried to keep up with the new consoles coming out, but I remember her always saying, "Another one? I just spent all this money on the other one." And my sister wasn't all that interested in video games, so we instead spent a lot of time together playing outside. I remember spending a lot of my time at the Cape hanging out with family at the Worcester Surf Casting Club, which, when I was younger, my grandfather was the president of. He loved fishing and would take me sometimes on fishing trips. I probably complained a lot and made it less fun for him, but I am forever grateful for the memories. I know I've never said it to you, Pepe, but if you happen to catch this, thank you for taking me with you. Pepe is the French-Canadian word for grandfather, or French word, whatever. So, some years passed, and I was less interested in playing outside with my sister. I'm sorry, Kayla. I started playing video games more, which may be kind of sad because I was always picked on at school for being a nerd. Kids were pretty mean in my school, so I didn't really try at getting good grades. I had a few friends, but I only really connected with one of them, James. And we had a lot of good times playing Conker's Bad Fur Day on the Nintendo 64, even though he always mixed up the words Tourette's and tarts. So he would always yell at me, Matt, get in the tarts, and I would just start swearing randomly. And I would laugh, and he would look at me like I was crazy. So he eventually moved away. His dad was a trucker, so they were always moving around. We kind of lost contact for a while. I still have my cousins Brandon and my cousin Corey, who I really connected with as well. Brandon was the cousin who was amazing at video games and always did well in school. He always knew about the new computer stuff and watched these crazy Japanese cartoons he called anime, which I knew nothing about at the time and would later learn to love. I actually remember watching my first ever anime, Pokemon, and he would come over sometimes. We would watch the new episodes and have all of our snacks laid out and make a big day about it. We're still close, and I have recently started talking more about working together actually to make my own game and some possibly collaboration YouTube videos, so keep an eye out for that. Corey was the cousin that was more into sports, but also played video games. I remember staying up late playing games and talking about what we learned or what we wanted to do with our lives, and he was also very good at school, and he had a lot of friends. I actually almost always envied him, and I think because of that, I tried to always be better than him at everything. Instead of enjoying our time together, I kind of made it into a contest. We aren't really close anymore, and I blame myself for it, probably more than I should. If you're watching this, Corey, I'm sorry. I miss you, man. So I was also into sports when I was in school. I played baseball and loved it, and played basketball a little, but I had a little bit of a weight problem, so going up and down the court more than once, not really something I was able to do. I was also joined the Boy Scouts and was a Weebelo, but I was actually asked to leave the group because I didn't do the assignments like I was supposed to. So I mostly just stuck to baseball, which was one of the best moments of my life. I was an outfielder at first until one day the ball was hit to me. I ended up fielding it and knew that if I threw to the cutoff guy, he wouldn't be able to make the play. So I tossed it as hard as I could, and from the fence made it to home plate in one bounce and got the out. When I got back to the dugout, my coach said two things. The first thing was, don't you ever do that again, the cutoff guy is there for a reason, and we are a team. The second thing he said was, why the hell did you not tell me you had an arm like that? So from that moment on, I went into training to pitch for my team. My meme, or grandmother, was nice enough to catch for me when I had to practice, and I'd still feel bad for making her hand red after pretty much every practice that we had, from throwing as hard as I was. So for that, meme, I'm sorry, but thanks for hanging in there. I guess I was pretty good at it, because my team ended up winning all of our games that season. We actually had a perfect season all the way through. It was the same year that I also pitched a perfect game, which was one of the most stressful times I've ever had in my entire life. Shortly after I graduated high school, my life kind of took a turn for the worst. I was lying to and stealing from my family. I would constantly get into screaming matches with my Aunt Missy. I'm sorry for that. The friends I did have in high school weren't around anymore because I basically treated them like not like they were my friends. And I tried to make my problems bigger than their problems, and for that I'm very, very truly sorry. Girls came and went, and a lot of the time it was my fault that they went. I've never been very good at holding relationships, romantic or otherwise, but I ended up meeting this girl, Missy, and I fell in love immediately. We ended up moving out to Boston, which was always a dream of mine. Her family wasn't the greatest, and because of my past, my family didn't trust me like they used to, so it kind of made sense for us to move in together. Things were going really well for a while, and we really enjoyed being together. We both played World of Warcraft, and we were, pretty good at it. We were both in the same raiding guild. If anyone has ever played World of Warcraft and raids, they know what that means. 6 months after I met her, I asked her to marry me, and she said yes. And I remember being happier than I ever had been at that point in my life. But after a while, we ended up fighting a lot, and I won't go into detail, but it was mostly my fault again. It was around Christmas time, and she went to visit her family. I remember staying up all night organizing her books so it'd be easier for her to find what she was looking for, and I also missed her, and her books always reminded me of her, so I felt like she was there with me when I was organizing them. Later that day, I got the text, and it said, "I'm not coming back. This isn't going to work. I'm sorry." At this point in my life, I felt entirely alone. A friend of mine had passed away that same year after having a seizure while he was sleeping, and I miss you every day, Jeff. And now I was losing my fiance. Some of my friends in the area let me stay with them, but I couldn't find a job, so I had to move into another friend's house, and then, this friend, it had turned out that he was actually sleeping with my fiance when we were still together, but I didn't know it at the time, so I was just grateful that he let me stay there. That also didn't last. I ended up finding somewhere else to stay, and a pretty good job, actually, at a woodworking company in Somerville. And I was living with a poet, and it opened up my life to a different side of me that I'd always kind of ignored. But after a while, I wasn't making enough money and had to move back in with my grandparents. After a few odd jobs, I found a job working at a big box home improvement store. I had to move in with my sister because of the location of the store, so I was able to reconnect with her, which was absolutely amazing. Everything was going well, but her boyfriend and I didn't really see eye to eye with a lot of things. And again, I won't go into detail with that, but suffice it to say, I was with my sister for probably about 6 to 8 months, and then I ended up leaving for a short period of time, planning on moving back in with her, but that never really came to be, which was heartbreaking because it was the first time in a long time I was able to see my sister again and really spend time with her and my nieces. So I moved in with my aunt Alicia for about 6 months before actually finding somebody through my work who was looking for a roommate. And for a while that seemed to work out really well, and we spent time hanging out together. I felt like I'd found a place that I could call home, but after a while some drama started over me taking in a cat named Lucian from my ex-fiance. My roommate was saying some really nasty things that just weren't true, and it led to me moving out. So now I was without a place to stay again. That was, this time, unintentionally caused by my ex-fiance. I decided that I would just stop talking to her and just try to move on with my life. I ended up moving in with my cousin Brandon, who ironically lived just down the street. Probably the easiest move in my life. We had a great time living with each other and would play games together. It reminded me of when we were younger, but going with the theme of my life, this didn't last long either. Which nothing happened with Brandon. We're still very close. But I moved in with another friend of mine, Tristan, that I met through work as well. I stayed with him for about a year, and it was some of the best days of my life. We were always there to support each other with whatever was going on. He also introduced me to a game called Minecraft, and I spent a lot of time making my Mountain of Doom with a wraparound glass walkway. The day that I found out the server's game info was corrupt was one of the saddest days of my life. I'm not even kidding. I nearly cried. It was 8 hours of work. Gone. So, through Tristan, I also met my current girlfriend, Amanda, and she is possibly the best person I have ever met in my life. She makes me want to be better at everything that I do. And because of that, I started going to school through an online program for my bachelor's in video game design. I knew I loved games and would talk about video games when I wasn't playing them, and when I wasn't talking about them, I was watching other people play them. Everything was going well for quite a while. I had a 3.67 GPA, which amazed me because my guidance counselor once told me that I wouldn't, quote-unquote, do well in college. Yep, that happened. But then I got sick, and I wasn't sure what it was because I'm not a doctor. So at first I ignored it until one day I couldn't even move. I was in so much pain. Amanda ended up dragging me to the ER, and I found out that I had a pretty serious stomach parasite. It was actually bad to the point where I got something in the mail that basically told me that I had to report to the city when I was clear, based on how easy it was to pass it on to other people. When I was sick, I wasn't able to turn in my assignments or attend classes, so my GPA dropped from a 3.67 to a 1.9. And after talking with my advisor, we decided it would be a good idea to to withdraw from my classes until I felt better. And I'm still trying to get back into school, and I know now that nothing is going to be able to stop me. So somewhere between going to school and getting sick, Amanda and I also decided to move in with our friend Pat. We found a great apartment out in a city called Taunton, and things were going pretty well. Pat and I would play games together a lot, but after a while, Pat and I started drifting. I was on medication for depression, but because of my stomach issue, I had to step down from a full-time position to a part-time at work, and I lost my health insurance. So I started drifting away from everyone, really. Amanda and I started fighting, and after a series of stupid mistakes, I ended up kind of messing around with someone else, and after a very emotional conversation, Amanda and I worked through the issue and are still together today. So, fast forward about 2 years, we planned on moving out to California to help out Amanda's grandmother from some family issues that she was having. I gave up my job and gave our landlord our notice. After going out there to meet her and coming back, absolutely falling in love with California in the process, we were told that her grandmother had been lying to us. She never intended on having us move out there at all, and now once again I was without a place to stay with no job, but this time I had Amanda. So we moved in with her parents, and still plan on moving out there as soon as we can, but in the meantime, I am looking for a job every day, and making YouTube videos when I can, which makes me happy. I'm also still working on my video game and trying to get back into school. And that is my life so far. If anything changes in the next couple of years, I will definitely do another. So I'm going to call this one Draw My Life Part 1. One of the main things that you can take away from this video, if you take anything from it, is no matter what happens or how bleak something can seem to be, there's always a way to work through it. And I know that sounds cliche, and I know that, words are pretty to look at, but action is 10 times better. But if someone like me can make it through the things that I've been through, anyone can. So I hope at least one person gets something out of this video. And if not, at least I've shared my story, and maybe you can relate, maybe you can't. Maybe you had a great childhood, and if you did, I'm very happy for you. But just keep in mind that no matter what happens, there's always someone who understands. All right, you guys have a good one.